Bron Breakker's career may be over. Bron Breakker is in the hospital right now with what medical staff are calling potentially career-altering injuries after the most vicious, most cowardly, most calculated assault WWE has allowed on television in years. Bronson Reed and Paul Heyman didn't just attack Bron last night, they tried to end him, systematically targeting his neck and spine in a brutal backstage ambush that has the entire WWE locker room furious and fans demanding answers about how this was allowed to happen. This wasn't a wrestling angle gone slightly too far. This was a premeditated attack designed to inflict maximum damage on WWE's fastest rising star, and the fact that Paul Heyman, a 59-year-old manager who should be nowhere near physical confrontations, was actively participating in the assault makes this even more disgusting and raises serious questions about WWE's duty to protect their talent. Bron Breakker, the second-generation superstar who was being groomed as the future of WWE, is now fighting just to be medically cleared to wrestle again. His WrestleMania plans are in jeopardy. His championship trajectory is derailed. And all because Bronson Reed and Paul Heyman decided that injuring someone was acceptable as long as it serves their storyline goals. Smash that like button and subscribe to Wrestling News CC because I'm about to expose exactly what happened in this brutal attack, why Paul Heyman's involvement is inexcusable, and why this incident should force WWE to implement serious safety reforms before someone else gets critically injured or worse. Let me walk you through this nightmare step by step because the details make this attack even more disturbing. Last night's Raw was supposed to feature Bron Breakker cutting a promo about his upcoming championship opportunity. Standard segment: Bron comes out, talks about his dominance, builds toward his next big match. Nothing that should result in someone being hospitalized. Bron finishes his promo and heads backstage. He's walking toward his locker room, still in his ring gear, completely unaware that Bronson Reed and Paul Heyman have been waiting in a darkened corridor specifically to ambush him when he's alone and vulnerable. The attack happens fast. Bronson Reed emerges from the shadows and hits Bron from behind with a forearm to the back of the head that sends him crashing face-first into a concrete wall. Bron's already dazed from that initial impact, not prepared to defend himself when Bronson grabs him and delivers a devastating powerbomb onto the concrete floor. The sound of Bron's body hitting concrete echoes through backstage. Camera crew members nearby gasp. And Bron is clearly hurt, not selling, actually injured, grabbing his neck and lower back in obvious pain. But Bronson Reed isn't done. And this is where it crosses from attack into potential assault. Bronson picks Bron up and delivers a second powerbomb onto the concrete. Then a third. Each impact more sickening than the last. Bron's body goes increasingly limp with each slam, and by the third one he's not even trying to protect himself anymore because he can't. Where is security during all this? Where is WWE management? Where are the wrestlers who should be stopping this before it goes too far? Nowhere. Because Paul Heyman made sure this attack happened in an isolated area where help wouldn't arrive until the damage was done. And speaking of Heyman, here's where his involvement becomes inexcusable. After Bronson finishes destroying Bron with multiple powerbombs, Heyman steps forward with a steel chair. A 59-year-old manager who hasn't taken a bump in years is now actively participating in assaulting a wrestler who's already critically injured and defenseless. Heyman raises the chair and brings it down across Bron's neck. Not his back where there's muscle to protect vital areas, his neck. The most vulnerable part of any wrestler's body. The area where one wrong impact can cause permanent damage or paralysis. And Heyman hits him there. Deliberately. Calculatedly. Multiple times. By the time security and medical staff finally arrive, Bron Breakker is unconscious. Not selling unconsciousness for dramatic effect, actually out from the cumulative trauma of being powerbombed 3 times on concrete and having a steel chair slammed into his neck repeatedly. The medical team immediately calls for a stretcher. Bron is carefully loaded with a neck brace applied because there's genuine concern about potential spinal injuries. And as he's being wheeled away, Paul Heyman is shown smiling into the camera like he just accomplished something to be proud of rather than potentially ending a young man's career. That image, Heyman smiling while Bron is taken away on a stretcher with a neck brace, is what makes this absolutely sickening. Here's why this attack is so problematic on multiple levels. First, the execution. 3 powerbombs on concrete is not standard wrestling violence. That's the kind of spot that should never be approved because the risk of legitimate injury is too high. 1 powerbomb on concrete is already pushing boundaries. 3 is reckless negligence by whoever approved this segment. Second, Paul Heyman's involvement. He's a manager. A 59-year-old non-wrestler who should not be taking physical actions that could injure talent. But more importantly, having him use a steel chair on Bron's neck specifically sends a dangerous message that targeting the most vulnerable area of someone's body is acceptable as long as it's a heel doing it. Third, the isolation of the attack. This happened in an area where no other wrestlers were around to intervene. That's deliberate booking designed to maximize the brutality without anyone stopping it. But it also means Bron was left defenseless for an extended period while suffering injuries that required immediate medical attention. That's not storytelling, that's potentially dangerous to the victim's health. The locker room reaction is reportedly furious. Multiple wrestlers have expressed outrage that this attack was allowed to go this far. There's particular anger directed at Paul Heyman for actively participating in injuring someone when he should know better given his decades in the business. Bron Breakker's family has also released a statement expressing their concern for his health and questioning why WWE allowed a segment that put him at such serious risk. His father, WWE legend Rick Steiner, is reportedly considering whether to take legal action against WWE for negligence in protecting his son. That's how serious this is. This isn't just storyline drama, this is potential legal liability because WWE created conditions that led to legitimate injury. Current medical reports suggest Bron is dealing with a potential cervical spine injury, damage to the vertebrae in his neck region. While early tests suggest it may not be as catastrophic as initially feared, he's still looking at minimum 8 to 12 weeks recovery time, and there's no guarantee he'll be cleared to return to full wrestling activity. That means Bron misses WrestleMania, misses his planned championship program, loses months of momentum at the most critical point of his career development, all because Bronson Reed and Paul Heyman executed an attack that WWE should never have approved. Here's what makes me angriest: this injury was preventable. If WWE had simply booked this attack with 1 powerbomb instead of 3, if they'd prohibited chair shots to the neck, if they'd had security intervene faster, if they'd done any of the basic safety measures that should be standard practice, Bron would be fine. But they didn't. They prioritized creating a shocking and brutal moment over actually protecting their talent. And now Bron is paying the price with his health and career trajectory. What should happen as a result of this incident? First, Paul Heyman should face consequences. Whether that's suspension, removal from television, or being barred from physical confrontations going forward, there needs to be acknowledgement that what he did was unacceptable. Second, WWE should implement mandatory safety reviews for all segments involving attacks or high-risk spots. No more approving 3 consecutive powerbombs on concrete. No more chair shots to the neck regardless of who's delivering them. Actual enforcement of safety standards that protect talent. Third, Bronson Reed's push should be paused until Bron returns. Not as punishment necessarily, but because continuing to push someone who just injured a colleague sends the wrong message about what WWE values. But what will probably happen? WWE will present this as just part of the storyline, make minimal changes to their safety protocols, and continue business as usual until the next preventable injury occurs. That pattern has to end. Because if it doesn't, we're going to keep watching talented wrestlers get hurt in segments that should never have been approved in the first place. My hope in this is genuine, is that Bron makes a full recovery and returns to WWE when he's actually ready, not when WWE pressures him to come back early for storyline reasons. He's too talented, too young, and has too much potential to have his career shortened by rushing back from a serious injury. And my demand is that WWE uses this incident as a wake-up call to implement real safety reforms. 3 powerbombs on concrete should never be approved. Chair shots to the neck should be banned permanently. And managers should not be participating in physical attacks that could cause serious injury. These aren't unreasonable requests, they're basic common sense measures that protect the people who make WWE's product possible. The wrestling community response has been overwhelming support for Bron. Fans across all promotions are hoping for his recovery. Even people who work for competing companies have sent well wishes because at the end of the day, this transcends company loyalty, it's about human safety. Drop your thoughts. Should Paul Heyman face consequences for his role in this attack? Was WWE negligent in approving this segment? And what safety reforms should be implemented to prevent this from happening again? Comments below, because the wrestling world needs to demand accountability. This is Wrestling News CC, where we prioritize wrestler safety over entertainment shock value. Subscribe for continued coverage of Bron's recovery and whether WWE finally implements the safety protocols that should have existed all along. Bron Breakker is critically injured. Paul Heyman participated in the attack. WWE approved a segment that put their talent at serious risk. And now we all wait to see if Bron can recover fully and whether WWE learns anything from this preventable tragedy. Wrestlers are human beings who deserve protection from reckless booking decisions. Bron Breakker's injury should force WWE to admit that creating shocking moments is never worth risking someone's career or long-term health. Get well soon, Bron. The wrestling world is behind you. And WWE better learn from this before someone else gets hurt in the pursuit of shock value television. #GetWellBron, #WrestlerSafety, #WWE Accountability.